Developing right now on Morning News Now, strikes and setbacks in the Middle East. This morning, the U.S. launching another round of attacks in the latest exchange with Iran, hours after President Trump reimposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports, but walked back plans to charge ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
I was called by different people, different countries, kings and emirs and all of the people that we all know and we all love. The Gulf states are going to invest a tremendous amount of money into the United States, and that was very satisfactory to me. I think it's actually much better.
Here at home, the renewed turmoil driving gas prices back up as we learn more about the growing price tag of the war itself. Also this morning in the hot seat, President Trump's Attorney General pick, Todd Blanche, set to face lawmakers in what could be a contentious confirmation hearing. Plus federal fallout after two deadly shootings by ICE officers less than 1 week apart. Now the agency pressing pause on one of its most common and controversial practices. Then taking precautions, health officials looking at leafy greens as the possible source of a parasite outbreak that sickened thousands of people nationwide. What doctors want you to know.
Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for starting your Wednesday with us. We are going to begin this hour in the Middle East, where U.S. Central Command says it began launching a new wave of strikes against Iran earlier this morning. In a post on X, they said the strikes were, quote, designed to further degrade military capabilities Iranian forces have used to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
This comes after President Trump reimposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports in that critical waterway, but he did walk back a threat to charge a fee for protecting ships passing through the strait. With the fighting escalating and traffic at a standstill in the strait, the price of oil is on the rise once again. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr joins us now with the latest details. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. It is unusual to see another round of U.S. strikes beginning so soon after the last one wrapped up last night, just in terms of how the pacing has gone up to this point. A potential sign of the fighting ramping up even more with the ceasefire now over. For the fourth night in a row, American forces hitting Iranian military targets, aiming to stop Iran's attacks on commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, in what is increasingly a fight over control of that vital shipping route. Iranian state media released video it says shows Iran striking a base in U.S. ally Jordan, though NBC News cannot independently verify that. President Trump warned Tuesday it will only get worse for Iran if they don't come back to negotiate.
We're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges.
The president reimposed the U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports to choke off its oil trade while reversing course on a move to charge a 20% fee on any other cargo that makes it through the strait. He had argued the U.S. would be the guardian of the strait and should be reimbursed for protecting ships passing through. He's now abandoning that idea after he says he heard from leaders in the region.
They said, we'd love to do it a different way. We'd love to invest in the United States with billions and billions of dollars.
No U.S. allies have so far publicly confirmed new investments, and Iran reasserted it's the guardian of the strait. Amid the renewed turmoil, oil and gas prices are pushing back up. And now a new look at the price of the war itself, which an internal Pentagon estimate puts at $80 to $100 billion, according to 3 U.S. officials and 3 people familiar with the matter. That includes the cost of rebuilding U.S. military bases and aircraft hit by Iranian strikes. And that new estimate is a big leap from the roughly $30 billion estimated just 3 months ago. Senators pressed the Pentagon's top financial official in a Capitol Hill briefing for more concrete answers on the war's full costs. Savannah, Joe?
Alice, any talks between the U.S. and Iran amid all this?
Yeah, President Trump was asked in that Fox News interview last night when he'd last spoken to the Iranians. He said his team had just heard from their Iranian counterparts within the past hour and that they sent back a new message to make a deal, though he acknowledged he doesn't know at this point if they actually will or not.
All right, Alice Barr in Washington, thank you.
Well, on Capitol Hill, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is going to face tough questions today. He's facing his confirmation hearing in President Trump's push to have him permanently lead the Justice Department.
Blanche is expected to endure a bipartisan grilling on a variety of issues, chief among them his department's investigations into President Trump's political adversaries and the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files.
Here to talk through this is NBC News political reporter Megan Brand and our legal analyst Danny Savalos. Good morning to both of you. Megan, I will start with you. Just tell us a bit more about some of the areas lawmakers are really going to be pressing Blanche, and ultimately, do we think he's in any danger of not being confirmed?
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, one of the major issues that we are expecting to come up today is that $1.776 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund. Now, that had originated after President Trump had sued the IRS over the leak of his tax returns, and then ultimately there was a settlement which led to that fund. Now, after bipartisan pushback, Blanche had said last month that he was no longer, the department was no longer going to ultimately move forward with the fund, but that's expected to be a major topic today. Also, of course, the Epstein files and the Department of Justice's handling of victim information and information that was released in the Epstein files earlier this year. Now, in terms of whether he could potentially face danger of not getting enough support, he really does not have any room for error in this hearing. He only needs one Republican senator to oppose his nomination in order for him to not be reported favorably out of the committee. So two senators that are going to be key to watch today. One is Senator John Cornyn of Texas, who had said that he's uncommitted on whether or not to support Blanche. And the other senator to keep an eye on is Senator Tom Tillis. Now, both of those senators have expressed concerns over the so-called anti-weaponization fund. So we're expecting to keep an eye and see whether that comes up as something that could potentially ultimately lead them to not favorably report Blanche out of committee, guys.
And notably, both are lame ducks for various reasons as well. So, Danny, let's bring you in here. Clearly, President Trump's close relationship with Blanche is going to face fierce scrutiny, having also been his personal attorney. Help us understand from a legal perspective if and how that could harm his push to become the full-time AG.
A close relationship by itself won't prevent someone from being appointed attorney general. After all, President Kennedy appointed his brother to be the attorney general. But in a way, as close as the bonds of brotherhood are, in a way, a former criminal defense attorney has an even stronger legal bond, because criminal defense attorneys like me, for our former clients, we don't have to remain friends with them. We don't have to keep in touch with them, but we forever owe them a duty to not enter into a conflict of interest with that former client. So there is and always has been an issue with Todd Blanche becoming the attorney general. Maybe you could make an argument that, if he was the U.S. attorney for the District of the Virgin Islands, you wouldn't see a conflict. But here, he is going to be the attorney general, and that does create at least the specter of a conflict. But the conflict at this point really isn't legal. It's more political.
And Megan, Blanche also, he's not just expected to feel the heat from lawmakers, he's also facing backlash from survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and we understand some of them will be on the Hill today to protest his confirmation. What are we hearing from them?
Yeah, that's right. Not only on the Hill, but actually in the room for this hearing today. Senator Dick Durbin had confirmed that they're going to be reserving some of the seats in the room for Blanche's confirmation hearing for survivors of Jeffrey Epstein to actually be there, as senators are pressing them on this issue. Now, earlier this week as well, several survivors of Epstein had released a PSA as well, urging senators to not support Blanche's confirmation. In that PSA, they described things like the release of personal information in the Epstein files, as well as things like nude photos, their names, information that can be used to identify them as being survivors of Epstein, and saying in that PSA that they wanted senators to vote against Blanche, arguing that Blanche failed them and victims everywhere, and they also argued that they and the country deserved better.
Danny, this hearing comes just days after a judge ruled President Trump's lawsuit against the IRS over leaked tax returns was brought, and the judge said, quote, bad faith for an improper purpose. The judge also ordered sanctions against some of those involved. That includes Blanche. Tell us a little more about that ruling. Could that come up during Blanche's hearing today?
Yeah, Judge Williams sanctioned directly some of the attorneys, but in a way, what she did to Todd Blanche is probably, in a way, more ominous. After all, she took that opinion and referred it to Blanche's bar, the New York bar. And that is the entity that disciplines attorneys like me. Every state has a bar or professional responsibility board, and discipline can range from public censure to the figurative death penalty, which is disbarment. That is the worst thing that can happen to us. And in a way, I would probably rather be sanctioned for a couple $1,000 by a judge in a court than to have my entire career at stake. And Blanche already faces discipline, or an investigation, I should say, to be more precise, in New York. So this is going to be a major issue today and expected to come up early and often.
Megan, while we have you also, we are learning a few more details about President Trump's primetime speech that he's scheduled for tomorrow. What do we know?
Yeah, so President Trump is expected to use that speech tomorrow to discuss election integrity and to discuss findings that the administration believes shows foreign interference in the 2020 election. That's according to a person familiar with the matter. Now, he was asked yesterday by a reporter what he's going to talk about in that speech, where President Trump said that he will have really big news. And he also said that without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. Now, President Trump has repeatedly falsely claimed that he won the 2020 election, which was won by now former President Joe Biden. And there's no widespread, or there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud as well. So Reach for Comment White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the truth is nobody knows yet what President Trump will ultimately say, which is why everyone should tune in.
All right, Megan and Danny, thank you both so much.
An urgent search and rescue effort is still ongoing in the San Francisco Bay this morning. 3 people are missing after a boat capsized near Alcatraz Island yesterday. Officials say the 50-foot boat was carrying 20 adults when it capsized yesterday afternoon near the infamous prison. The passengers were taking part in a memorial service on the vessel. Officials say 1 man died and 3 others were hospitalized after falling into the water. They say all of the injured are now in stable condition. The incident was initially called in as a fire, but so far officials have found no evidence of one on board. Marine rescue units are now racing against time to try and find the missing as investigators work to piece together what caused the boat to sink.
Well, another summer scorcher is on. This morning, 117 million people are under heat advisories, with record highs stretching from here in the Northeast to the Northern Plains all the way down to South Florida. The heat is so bad in Massachusetts, officials had to close more than 40 beaches because of a concern that the warm water could become a breeding ground for a bacterial outbreak. Meanwhile, in Texas, the governor has declared a state of disaster in some communities after torrential rain left some towns completely underwater. There is more rain in the forecast today. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in Texas following the extreme weather, and he has the latest from Uvalde.
Relentless rainfall bringing dangerous flooding across a huge swath of South Texas. Powerful waters overtaking roads, forcing high water rescues. In Uvalde County, the Texas game warden says they helped the passengers in this vehicle escape just before the current carried it away. Watch as crews pull up on another vehicle stuck in raging waters, carefully peeking through the windows to make sure no one is inside. We managed to venture as far as here in the highest impact zone. Now you see the water overwhelming this side of the highway, is shutting down all of the traffic heading west from San Antonio. Parts of the area seeing up to a foot of rain. In Uvalde, these roads impassable, floodwaters submerging streets and surrounding businesses. In nearby Medina County, officials warning why travel may be especially dangerous.
They're traveling at night and quickly come up on a low water crossing. Before they realize they're in it, they're swept off.
Meanwhile, widespread heat bakes millions across the country. In the Northeast, other dangers keeping beachgoers out of the water. In the New York City area, warnings of life-threatening rip currents. And in Massachusetts, dozens of beaches closed there because of elevated levels of bacteria in the water. While in the West, the heat fueling wildfires, including the Babylon fire in Utah, now burning more than 165 square miles. Ryan Chandler, NBC News.
And yes, it is going to be a hot one here in the Northeast. So for more on what we can expect, let's get a closer look at your morning News Now forecast.
Angie Lastman's with us with the latest. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Let's start with that heat. We'll get to the flooding here in a moment, but 117 million people included in these heat alerts across parts of the plains, the Northeast, the Great Lakes, all thanks to this heat dome that really stretches from both of those regions across. This is going to leave us with, again, some air quality issues that I'll show you in a moment, but more kind of potential, really uncomfortable and dangerous heat through the day today. But there is some colder air that's going to kind of slide into the region thanks to this cold front that'll slide south here as we get through the next couple of days, but not before we potentially break some records today and tomorrow. You can see all of those locations across the Northeast: Washington, Allentown, Wilmington, Georgetown, all included, Richmond, Raleigh, the potential to see some record highs today. Highs are going to be into the 90s. This is also, one of those situations where you're going to have to look at the heat index, and if you're going to be outdoors, 102 for what it'll feel like in Detroit today. We've got 100 in Dayton for your feels like temperature. So it's very hot and very humid across this region and points south. By tomorrow, notice we'll start to get a little bit of relief. Upper 80s for Cleveland, still into the mid 90s in Charleston and feeling like 100 degrees. That cold front eventually will kind of make a real difference as we get into the weekend in places like New York City, where the high will just be 83 degrees. So a big temperature swing over just a couple of days as that colder air filters in. Through the weekend, though, on the other hand, in Memphis, still into the mid-90s. Same story for Houston, so we'll keep the heat in place for folks there. We're also dealing with some air quality issues, partly because of the heat with those ground pollutants, but also because we've got dozens of massive wildfires kind of stretched across Western Ontario with more than 250 acres already burned, and much of that wildfire smoke kind of filtering into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast on those northwest winds. So this is going to be something that you notice today and into the next couple of days. We've got unhealthy to even hazardous air quality across parts of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, and then we'll see maybe some hazy skies across the Northeast. You shouldn't see all that much impact down at the surface level, but still something to note. Meanwhile, the flooding continues to be a big issue across Texas. 5 million people included in those flood alerts right now, guys, and we've still got more of that intense rain in the picture through the day today, something that folks here are going to have to pay attention to at least for another day or so. The flooding concern will be with us.
Right, important info there, Angie. Thank you. See you in a little bit. Well, health officials are now zeroing in on lettuce as the possible cause of an outbreak of cyclosporiasis. The parasite has now infected thousands of people across 34 states, causing gastrointestinal issues that can last for weeks. NBC's Ann Thompson has the details.
34 states grappling with cyclospora, the parasite that can be found on fresh produce, making Americans sick. Michigan zeroing in on lettuce. Its top doc says there is a clear preliminary signal pointing to the leafy green.
Why do you suspect lettuce?
We've interviewed about 1,000 out of the 3,000 cases we have so far. Lettuce seems to be an ongoing exposure for those who've been impacted.
Federal officials say Michigan is one of 4 Midwestern states where the cases could be linked. Taco Bell confirming it removed limited ingredients at select restaurants while authorities continue their broader review, noting public health officials have not confirmed a link to Taco Bell. The Washington Post reports federal and state health officials are investigating the chain, citing 2 individuals familiar with the probe. CDC did not comment. Michigan's Dr. Bagdasarian.
So there was no location that came up in 100% of cases, but there certainly were restaurants and fast food chains that did come up.
Including Taco Bell?
I'm not going to comment on those specifics right now.
Nationwide, the CDC says it's confirmed 1,645 cases of cyclosporiasis and is aware of 5,100 more. Christina Serafino says she ate fresh fruits and vegetables hiking last month and got sick for weeks.
Just really strong gas and bloating pains. And on top of that, you're not eating, so you're hungry and you're having hunger pains also.
Our thanks to Ann Thompson for that report, and we'll have more on this later in the hour when Dr. Natalie Azar joins us for our weekly checkup.
ICE is now ordering its agents to temporarily stop pursuing people in vehicles while trying to make arrests. Anger is growing after 2 deadly shootings involving people in cars in the span of less than a week. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin is in Maine at the scene of the latest shooting.
ICE has ordered all officers to stop targeting immigrants in their vehicles after 2 separate ICE-involved shooting deaths in less than a week. That according to two senior DHS officials. Border czar Tom Homan saying
it's not a policy change. It's a temporary pause.
Officials say neither man, one killed in Texas, the other in Maine, was the target of the ICE operation.
There are sufficient critical questions to justify bringing non-emergency traffic stops to a halt.
The order comes after a fatal shooting in Biddeford, Maine. The Colombian embassy identified the man killed as Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero, who DHS confirmed was authorized to work in the U.S. New video shows the car he was driving moving in circles, then later struck by another vehicle. This video capturing the moment ICE agents pulled a limp body from the car. Another angle shows police ringing the doorbell of a nearby pawn shop, asking what cameras the building has.
I need to know what they have for cameras.
Resident Cecilia Humiston says she saw Guerrero's family, including a little girl, gathered just yards away.
She was still wearing her bluey PJs, and the mother of the daughter, she was like completely distraught.
A senior DHS official with knowledge of the incident told NBC News the man killed matched the physical description of a target and was exiting a residence associated with the target. A statement released by ICE said the agent opened fire fearing for public safety after the vehicle attempted to flee. Authorities say none of the agents in Texas or Maine were wearing body cameras.
There's no excuse for it. They have no end of money.
A former and current senior DHS official tells NBC News that they believe the pressure to increase the number of arrests is to blame for this latest violence, saying the agents are under too much stress. Back to you.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
Well, after a lengthy appeals process, E. Jean Carroll has collected her more than $5 million civil judgment from President Trump. The payment comes 3 years after a jury found the president liable for sexually abusing and defaming her. The payment was confirmed by Carroll's attorney. The money had been held in a court escrow account while the president filed various appeals. A district judge ordered the money to be paid earlier this month after the Supreme Court denied Mr. Trump's bid to hear another appeal.
We're back with new developments in the case of Lee Gilley. That is the Houston man accused of killing his pregnant wife, Krista, back in 2024. He then fled to Europe just days before his trial was set to begin in May.
And Gilley has claimed he is innocent and is seeking asylum in Italy. Earlier this month, an Italian court ruled Gilley must remain in custody overseas until his extradition back to the U.S. Earlier today, an Italian court of appeals held a hearing on his extradition.
NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now with the latest details on this. Raf, good morning. So first of all, bring viewers up to speed on this case and just how Gilley ended up in Italian custody.
Hey, guys, good morning. Yeah, this is a pretty grim case. Back in October 2024, 911 call from the Gilley family home. Lee Gilley said that his wife appeared to have committed suicide, but authorities, when they carried out a forensic investigation, concluded that she had, in fact, been murdered. They charged Lee Gilley, who should say the wife, Krista, was pregnant at the time. They charged Lee Gilley with capital murder. He was released on bond with one of those electronic monitoring tags. He was due to go on trial in Texas, in Houston, in May of this year, but just before the trial was due to begin, he allegedly cut off that electronic monitoring tag and then, using a false passport, fled first to Canada, then to Italy. He was arrested by Italian authorities, and he is now there facing extradition back to the U.S. The key question in this case now is about the death penalty. Guys?
So, Raf, that's exactly right. This key sticking point in this extradition process has been the death penalty in Texas. Gilley could face that if convicted. And in May, he had told an Italian judge that he fled to Italy to avoid being killed. What is the latest from court? What is he finding there in Italy to that argument he's making?
Yeah, so Gilley is arguing that he's innocent, that he didn't kill his wife. But his Italian defense lawyers are focusing on this narrower question of the death penalty. Death penalty is illegal in most of Europe. Most European countries will not extradite someone if they are at risk of execution. But Italian authorities are saying that they have received assurances from prosecutors in Texas that they will not seek the death penalty. And as a result, they are comfortable with moving ahead with this extradition. What Gilley's lawyers are saying is these assurances are not sufficient. They're not strong enough. Texas prosecutors have not publicly said that they are not looking for the death penalty, but they also haven't filed the paperwork that you would expect them to if they were planning to move ahead with asking for capital punishment. So it does appear that they have moved away from that. It is now in the hands of this Italian appeals court as to whether or not Gilly's extradition goes ahead. They have to rule within the next 6 months, but they may do so much sooner. Guys.
All right. Raph Sanchez. Raph, thank you.
Well, in the wake of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, some parents are being forced to make difficult choices and prepare for the worst when it comes to their families. One priest at a church in Maryland told NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal about how he's helping children in his community whose parents have been deported.
At this Episcopal church in Maryland, the fear is palpable.
El miedo se ve y se siente en la comunidad.
The congregation, made up largely of immigrants, is in constant fear of deportations, as some members have already been sent back to their home countries.
Uno no puede ser indiferente al dolor de una familia, sobre todo cuando hay niños que son tan vulnerables.
Senior priest Vidal Rivas says he's agreed to become the legal guardian for nearly 30 children in the event their parents are detained and deported.
Es una prevención. Usted nunca sabe qué va a pasar con sus hijos.
Why did you decide to assign the priest as a guardian for your children?
Yo tengo familias, pero confío mucho más en él.
This single mother, who asked not to be identified because of her undocumented status, is one of more than a dozen families in the church who have designated Rivas as their child's guardian.
Los niños no se ven en El Salvador. Ellos no quieren ir a El Salvador.
A recent analysis by the Brookings Institution suggests more than 140,000 children have already been separated from their parents during this administration's immigration crackdown, a number that far exceeds the zero-tolerance policy of the first Trump administration in 2018. Those numbers are stirring up fears and uncertainty for many families, including this one in California. This Chinese father of 5 came to the U.S. 12 years ago on an EP5 investor visa. We're not identifying him and his wife by name, and we are altering their voices because they fear retaliation.
All of you guys were born in the U.S., right? Yeah.
He says a clerical error derailed his visa application and even led to a 4-month detention in ICE custody. Now he's facing a removal notice, making deportation a very real possibility.
What was it like for you to get this letter that was revoking your residency?
简直心情难以平复嘛，因为这个突如其来跟天塌下来是一样的。
The man and his wife say the possibility of deportation and what that might mean for their family weighs heavily on them.
因为我们没有美国亲属嘛，如果我们一旦大人离开了，孩子们都是美国公民。
学习生活它都已经是，尤其是学习环境都已经是定型的一个状态。
I actually enjoy my life here.
And this is what you're used to?
Yes. I don't think I can adapt very well if I was back in China.
The family's lawyer says theirs is not the only case he's seen.
I have witnessed over 30 families having same situation. It's very hard for their children to say goodbye to their parents.
In a statement to NBC News, a DHS spokesperson says, in part, ICE does not separate families or deport U.S. citizens. Parents are asked if they want to be removed with their children, or ICE will place the children with a safe person the parent designates. This is consistent with past administrations' immigration enforcement.
Siguen siendo maltratados.
Back in Maryland, Father Rivas has already taken in 2 young children who have since been returned to their mother here in the U.S., but says he's ready to take on more if needed.
Es una obligación moral.
He says for him, it's a moral obligation and a way to help the families preparing for an uncertain future. Camila Bernal, NBC News.
All right, our thanks to Camila for that report. Coming up, brain power, the new research that shows how a good diet and exercise could help not just the body, but also the mind. Dr. Azar is here with our weekly checkup.
And a heartbreaking diagnosis for an American hero. The message from the Miracle on the Hudson pilot, Captain Sully Sullenberger. Next, you are watching Morning News Now.
We are back with our weekly medical checkup, starting with more on one of our big stories here, this surge in cyclosporiasis that has sickened thousands and put dozens of people in the hospital.
We're also talking about what you can do to slow down how fast your body ages, as well as a study that looks into how to preserve your brain health.
We have NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar here on set with us. Hi, Dr. Azar. All right, we got to start with this parasite that's getting people sick. How concerned should we be, and what can we be doing to try to prevent getting it?
So, this is one of those situations. I mean, Michigan's cases in the thousands, and they normally have 40 cases per year. And I think, explanations for that are we had cuts to CDC who are tracking this. It takes so long to develop symptoms. It's hard to monitor all of these people. But here we are. I think people need to stay aware, right? You need to know what's going on in your community, because the more cases there are around you, the likelihood is that there is going to be a source that's somewhere in your supermarket or some food that you potentially could come into contact with. What I've started to do, and I think it makes a lot of sense, no more bagged lettuce for a little while. Yeah. That's one of the biggest culprits. So if you are purchasing salad ingredients, you want to buy the whole head rather than just something that is packaged, even if it says that it's pre-washed. You want to remove the outer layers. Rinsing under cold water for up to 1 minute, really, the studies show it can reduce up to 90% of the parasites, those oocytes. That's what they're trying to get off. And obviously, you can use a produce scrub brush as well. With fresh vegetables and a salad, you can't cook, but to the degree that you can, cooking up to 158 degrees Fahrenheit will kill the parasite. You may want to forego some of that fresh produce for a little while if you're very concerned.
Or have a hot salad. Hot salad.
Real hot salad, maybe.
All right, let's turn to that new study on brain health.
Yeah.
What do researchers say can help you stay sharp?
Okay, so this may not come as a surprise to everybody, but the three main domains here are your activity, your diet, and how much you socialize. And what was interesting about this study was that it was performed in Latin America. We don't get a lot of data from Latin American countries, but what I liked about this was that researchers had two different groups of people. One was a structured program where they engaged people in all of these things, a healthful diet, physical activity, social, and then the other group was an unstructured program. And what they found was that the individuals who engaged in the structured program, learning about how to exercise and eat healthy and engage, had improvements in their memory and thinking. Now, whether or not that translates long-term into a reduced risk of dementia, they can't say. The study was only 2 years long, but my doctor's orders are prioritize your movement. Eat whole food. How many times do I have to say that, right? And stay engaged. We know that all of those things can translate into a healthier cognitive outcome for you.
Similar here, but another study talking about how you could slow down your body's aging. What kind of stuff can we be doing for that?
Okay, so I think we did a very similar story, I think a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about the difference between physiological aging versus chronological aging. Remember, physiological aging is how healthy, how fast your cells are aging versus just what the number says on your birth certificate, right? So this study was out of Japan, and what they found was that people who engaged in cultural activities, that includes movies, theater, and museum, as little as once every few months, lowered their physiological age by 3 years compared to the people who didn't. And they think it's, why would that happen? Well, maybe going to the theater is also associated with some other healthy behaviors.
You've got to be like 15.
I was about to say,
you're
going to go 3 to 4 times a week.
You're only 20 years old, right? Well, that is the thing, though. The more you do, the bigger the payoff. Okay. So my doctor's orders are make time for the fun, find something you love. But it's another example of how these lifestyle behaviors can actually impact how we age. We say that there's such a high percentage of things that we can control when it comes to dementia, when it comes to how we age. A lot of things are set in stone, your genetics, but maybe not even your age anymore, right? I mean, you can tweak that a little bit too.
Maybe that fountain at Lincoln Center is actually the fountain of youth.
Maybe it is. Maybe you found it. I mean, you're aging
that's
backwards.
What it means.
Benjamin
there we go.
Button.
That's the best news I've gotten all morning, Dr. Azar. Thank you so much.
Right.
All right. Now we got a major health update from Captain Sully Sullenberger, the hero of the Miracle on the Hudson emergency landing back in 2009. The veteran pilot revealed that he has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. He announced that he wants to use his diagnosis to raise awareness and to help others. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has more.
More than 17 years after Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger became an American hero.
We made it in Hudson.
Expertly landing his crippled passenger plane on the icy Hudson River, saving everyone's life.
The river clearly was my only viable option.
Captain Sully announced he's one of 7.5 million Americans aged 65 and older living with Alzheimer's. At 75, calling it the unwanted visitor at the door. He writes, "For now, this means a name may not come easily to me. I forget a story I've recently told, or I don't sleep as well, but I am in the beginning of this long journey." Alzheimer's researchers say diet, keeping cholesterol and blood sugar levels in check, exercise and sleep can reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. New drug treatments can slow its progression.
I don't know that we're going to have that one magic bullet, but I do think the combination of therapies can get people off the road to Alzheimer's disease.
After using his notoriety to push for aviation safety,
we can no longer define safety solely as the absence of accidents.
Sully says, "I am now part of a larger community with many of you, and we will be courageous together." Aviation analyst Captain John Cox has known Sully for 40 years.
He's clearly a role model, and he will remain that way for many, many years to come.
We need people to share their stories.
A new voice for an American hero. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Coming up, packing the park, one of America's crown jewels, seeing record crowds, long lines, and with that, a lot of garbage. We're going to take you to Yosemite for a look at the growing problem and what is being done about it.
And a sweet discovery that's out of this world, what scientists found between the stars and what it could tell us about the origins of life on Earth. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. One of America's most popular national parks, Yosemite, is seeing record numbers of visitors this summer, but that's leading to longer lines, packed trails, and more trash. And critics say changes to the way the parks are run are making the situation worse. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber has more.
If you're visiting Yosemite National Park in the summer, you are sure to see great mountain views, luscious greenery, and busloads of people. Dozens of visitors taking to social media, showing bumper-to-bumper traffic just to get into the park. And once you're inside, some parts with shoulder-to-shoulder crowding.
I honestly thought there was way too many people.
Mobeen Zirakari says his most recent trip to Yosemite was busier than ever before.
When reservations were required, the crowd was much better.
Back in February, the Trump administration decided to roll back the reservation system at major national parks in an effort to expand access. When announcing the change, Yosemite Park Superintendent Ray McPadden said the reservation system was, quote, not the most effective approach ahead of the summer season. And those months, according to park data, are historically the busiest months of the year.
There was more litter as well, like on the trail and stuff. It's kind of disappointing to see that.
More people equals more damage. I think that's pretty common sense.
And camper Elsie Grant has been going to Yosemite for decades. She even got engaged there. But now she says she's nervous for her upcoming trip.
Hiking one step after another seems actually incredibly dangerous, along with being uncomfortable and just not really fun.
But the reservation system isn't the only big change to come to the parks in recent years. Since January of 2025, National Park Service has seen a 24% reduction in permanent workforce, with seasonal hiring lagging ahead of the summer months, according to Fed Tools. And it's coming at a time when recreational visits in Yosemite are back to pre-pandemic levels, with over 4.2 million just last year. Earlier this month, California Senators Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla sent a letter to the Department of Interior saying the increase in visitation plus reduction in park staff levels leaves them, quote, deeply concerned about visitor safety and park protection. But the Secretary of the Interior says their park teams are doing great.
Record number of attendance at Yosemite over Memorial Day weekend. We expect to have a record-breaking summer across the country.
Those record-breaking numbers, for some, impacting their experience.
Despite the overcrowding, it was still very beautiful. Like, you could still intake the scenery, but I think there's definitely more potential when it comes to having those reservations. I'll definitely keep going back. I love Yosemite.
Ellison Barber, NBC News.
Scientists have made a sweet new discovery in deep space. A group of astronomers found a type of sugar, yes, sugar, dispersed in clouds of gas that float between solar systems in our galaxy.
You can find this same type of sweet treat in anything from raspberries to even self-tanning lotions down here on Earth. Well, now researchers are saying it might help reveal a little bit more about the origins of our life here on Earth.
For more on this, let's bring in Jana Levin. She is a professor of physics and astronomy at Barnard College and also the author of several books, including Black Hole Blues and Other Songs from Outer Space. Professor, good to have you with us. Might sound a little crazy to say we found sugar in space. That might get me to get on a spaceship, certainly, but it's not the same thing we put in our tea or in our desserts. Break it down for us. What did researchers find? How did they find it?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. It's a simpler sugar than the table sugar you're going to put in your coffee, but it's a very flexible, primal kind of building block, and it can play a role in these chemical factories. So what's astounding is we found this not on another planet, but in a very tenuous gas cloud, very harsh conditions, extremely cold, in a busy part of the galaxy near the center of the Milky Way. And so what's so intriguing about that is it suggests that these sugars, which are fundamental for the backbone of DNA and the emergence of life, don't need to be attached to a living planet, that they can actually form in the voids, the very difficult regions of space. Now, these clouds are probably recycling material for billions of years before they themselves form other planets. So it's really intriguing that life is seeded possibly from space.
So this is the first time we understand that sugar has been discovered floating in space, but not attached to any known life form. Can you explain why that is important?
Yeah, we would kind of imagine these conditions on Earth. You might try to go into a laboratory and say, we have these beautiful, pristine conditions on the Earth to begin to make the sugars and the amino acids and the things that go into really structuring DNA, the building blocks for life. And that's actually incredibly hard to do. That's been an elusive component in trying to understand the emergence of life on Earth. What could be happening instead is that after the Earth forms, and often out of such a gas cloud, in very difficult conditions, that items like asteroids and comets and meteorites will continue to bombard the Earth, bringing these sugars to us, bringing these fundamental organic elements back to the Earth, and then populating it with the material it needs to begin the process of emerging life.
Professor,
so it's very intriguing that this could happen everywhere in the galaxy.
Is there anything this specific sugar molecule tells us about life and the evolution of life?
Well, it doesn't tell us specifically. We know that these sugars are part of kind of chemical factories, that they're primal components that participate in a series of steps that will eventually lead to a sugar that's complex enough that it can make the backbone of DNA. And every living organism on Earth has as its backbone DNA. So what we're seeing is something that could be flexible enough, prebiotic, before biology, that it could begin this process somewhere else in the solar system, on a moon, in another planet, around a different star.
How will this discovery help drive further important research?
Well, these gas clouds are really prevalent. They're everywhere. In fact, this big gas cloud that they were looking at is pretty near a supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. It's not necessarily the easiest conditions. And if we're imagining that these gas clouds are everywhere, they're interstellar, they exist between the stars, it's often material reprocessed from stars that formerly lived, died, and exploded, and cast their material out into the universe. And so it suggests that it's ubiquitous, that it's not coming from highly idealized circumstances like the ones we imagine here on Earth, but rather it can happen everywhere we look in the galaxy. So that's very exciting for the prospects of searching for life.
Felt like I was just back in my high school science class there. Professor Levin, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for kicking off your Wednesday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm back. I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, fear and escalation in the Middle East. A fresh round of American attacks pelting Iranian targets both this morning during daylight hours and overnight. U.S. military officials now saying they're reignited that naval blockade on Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. But could Iran's response to it all threaten to cripple the world's energy supply? We've got the latest coming up. Also this morning, states of emergency, Mother Nature doling out a dangerous split screen of extreme weather from coast to coast. Down in Texas, folks seeing an entire summer's worth of rain in just a few days. The governor declaring a state of disaster. And along the East Coast, millions from South Florida to New England set to weather another brutal day of sizzling heat. Angie is here with more on when we might see temps start to drop. Plus, that multi-state outbreak of a downright nasty foodborne illness now sickening thousands. And now, the top doc in hard-hit Michigan blaming lettuce and other leafy greens for that concerning spread. It's even got Taco Bell yanking a handful of ingredients from the menu, citing safety as its top priority. More on the food anxiety that is gripping the country. And an American hero in the skies now facing a brand new battle on the ground. Captain Sully Sullenberger revealing he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Why he is speaking out. An important message about raising awareness. Let's begin this hour in the Middle East, where the U.S. continues to escalate the war with Iran. Earlier this morning, U.S. Central Command said it began a new wave of strikes on Iranian military capabilities, which they say Iran is using to target vessels in the Strait of Hormuz.
This comes after the U.S. military says it has reimposed a naval blockade on Iranian ports in the Strait. In response, Iran threatened earlier today to halt all energy exports to the Middle East over that blockade. The country also fired back at U.S. military sites in the Gulf Arab region overnight. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from Qatar with the latest. Keir, good morning. So tell us more about this latest round of strikes overnight and this morning.
Yeah, well, from across the water from here in Iran, we have been hearing this morning that news of fresh explosions. Morning time, as you mentioned, according to U.S. Central Command, in where you are, but here, the middle of the day, U.S. Central Command using this language, the strikes are designed to further degrade military capabilities Iranian forces have used to attack commercial shipping. It was the fourth night of strikes through the night, hour after hour after hour, against Iran by CENTCOM. And then the Iranians, on the other hand, saying that it has targeted locations in Kuwait and Bahrain, U.S. military locations. The Iranians saying that they have hit even U.S. military aircraft. Now, the Iranians have a record of making claims that turn out not to be true, but certainly we are at a very dangerous moment here. We at a moment of potential serious escalation, with Axios citing three sources claiming that President Trump, in a Situation Room meeting Tuesday, considered the idea of a major new offensive against Iran, and then giving that interview in which he says that he is threatening to target Iranian civilian infrastructure like energy sites unless Iran agrees to negotiate. Under the Geneva Convention, guys, it's against the convention to target infrastructure that is considered essential to civilians.
Keir, meanwhile, we're still keeping an eye on the ports. President Trump reimposed the naval blockade on Iranian ports. He did back off his plan to collect that 20% fee from ships passing through the strait. What's he saying about that change of plan? Just what do we know about the U.S. strategy right now?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, he's saying that he had a phone call from a number of leaders, and it's not hard to guess who, very likely a senior person here in Qatar, where I am, UAE, Saudi, we don't know, but he inferred, and that they said that they would invest in the US, and that therefore he was reversing that threat to impose those 20% tariffs at the Strait of Hormuz. Look, it's got many people here mystified what the purpose was, though, because was it to try and raise money, or was it to try and put pressure on the Iranians? That wasn't entirely clear, but that's his explanation for why he's threatened that and now said he's not going to do that. And now, as I mentioned, he's now making fresh threats and having, according to Axios, fresh meetings about taking this to a very different stage here. So threats that he's made in the past, but which he hasn't seen through, or at least not extensively. To your point, things that are happening here are again having a real impact back there. I'll just give you some of those numbers. Gas prices are now at $3.89 a gallon. over there, and that's up from $3.79 a week ago. Experts saying, guys, that we could soon cross back across that $4 a gallon threshold as we did last month.
Keir also mentioned Tehran is threatening to halt all energy exports to the Middle East over this blockade. Tell us more about how they've been responding to this new wave of aggression from the U.S.
Yeah, they're making substantial threats. And actually, we spoke to a former Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander yesterday who said that he doesn't believe, he told us, he's well connected in the government in Tehran, and he said that he doesn't believe that they're going to get back to negotiations. The question about that memorandum of understanding is exactly what it means. And I think in a certain way, what we're seeing here is a disagreement between the US and Iran over what was actually agreed. So, for example, if you just take point 5 of that MOU, that gives the Iranians the right, if you like, it's a memorandum of understanding, it's not a deal, but still the right to talk to neighbours here and agree terms for the Strait of Hormuz. The US sort of disagrees with that. Ultimately, failure of diplomacy, we're back to war.
All right, Keir Simmons, thank you so much.
117 million people across the country are waking up under heat advisories. Today, record-breaking temperatures are expected across much of the country from the Northeast to South Florida. And parts of Texas are getting an entire summer's worth of rain in just a few days. That is causing major flooding throughout the state, and it's prompting the governor to declare a state of disaster. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in Uvalde, Texas, with more on that potentially catastrophic flash flooding. Ryan, good morning.
Yeah, Joe, good morning. We're here in Uvalde, one of the 59 counties under that state of disaster. And here is the danger that millions of Texans are waking up to today. This is the Leona River in Uvalde. You see it's already exploding out of its banks, making for some life-threatening conditions if you tried to cross this bridge here. We've seen crossings like this all up and down this storm zone with only more danger ahead.
Overnight, relentless rainfall across a wide stretch of Texas. The intense downpours increasing the risk for life-threatening flash flooding. The governor declaring a state of disaster in 59 counties Tuesday, as many roads were overtaken by powerful rushing water. The Texas game warden rescuing passengers trapped in fast-moving water, inundating this road outside Uvalde, just before their car was swept away.
These flash floods can happen quickly.
Once again, torrential rains back in the Texas Hill Country. Just 1 year after the tragic and deadly flooding killed so many along the Guadalupe River and at Camp Mystic. Cars trying to navigate wet, muddy roads that look more like rivers. And farmland completely submerged.
What are the greatest dangers that the people here are facing?
Right now, it's just the low water crossings. They're traveling at night and quickly come up on a low water crossing before they realize they're in it. They're swept off.
As much as a foot of rain has fallen in some areas, with even more expected. Meanwhile, 117 million people are now under heat alerts. The summer swelter producing stifling conditions that feel like triple-digit temperatures across a wide swath of the country. In Massachusetts, dozens of beaches that would normally provide relief closed because of elevated bacteria levels in the water. The upper Midwest and Northeast are also dealing with smoke drifting down from hundreds of Canadian wildfires. While in Utah, more than 165 square miles are burning.
Back here in Uvalde, I can tell you the intensity of the rainfall this morning was unbelievable. And that system has now moved north, now battering the hill country along the Guadalupe River and the hill in the Kerrville area. And that's north of us, so it's all coming south. We only expect some of that runoff will help fill this river even more later today, Joe.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much.
As he's clearly illustrating there, the threat of flooding continues in parts of Texas this morning.
Angie Lastman is here tracking the trouble for us. Angie, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning. It's not hard to see what Ryan is talking about when you look at your radar and those flood alerts. Notice how active it is in that same region this morning. We've got the flash flood warnings up for Kerrville and Point South. We've got the ongoing kind of slow-moving showers and thunderstorms included in that, and overall 5 million people included in flood alerts across Texas. Here's what we're setting coming up for today. We've still got more of those kind of intense rain bands working across those same already saturated and inundated areas that are dealing with the flooding in parts of West Texas and across parts of the Southeast. We're going to see additional showers and thunderstorms. Even tomorrow, the coverage area of Texas shrinks, but we're still going to see some of that activity across those same regions because, again, even small amounts of rain for tomorrow on already saturated grounds, they are just adding insult to injury at this point. We've got the life-threatening flooding expected today. Notice that high risk in parts of West Texas, Del Rio, San Antonio, all included in that as we gear up for additional rainfall with upwards of maybe 5 to even 10 additional inches of rain still to come. Meanwhile, the heat alerts, they'll get your attention to 117 million people from the plains to the Great Lakes to the Northeast included as this heat dome stretches across that region. But there is cooler air on the way. We've got to wait for this cold front to sink south. That happens in the short term, but we've still got to get through today and tomorrow with potentially record highs with this summertime heat and highs across this region into the 90s and feeling like the triple digits for at least the next couple of days, guys. We will see some cooler air kind of filter in as we get into the later parts of our work week.
All right, bring it to us. Looking forward to that.
It's on its way.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it. In California, an active search and rescue effort is underway in San Francisco Bay. 3 people are missing after a boat carrying 20 people capsized near Alcatraz Island yesterday. Authorities say one person has died along with a dog that was on board. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is following this story for us. Liz, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. Well, officials say this all happened on a 3-deck recreational boat while it was between the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz Island, home to the infamous prison. They say it took off from a popular San Francisco yacht club, and that it's believed the group was on the boat for a memorial service.
It looks like multiple people are in the water.
This morning, marine rescue teams scouring the San Francisco Bay for 3 missing people after a 50-foot boat carrying 20 adults capsized Tuesday afternoon near Alcatraz Island.
They were hit by a wave or took on water, and the boat capsized.
According to officials, 1 man has died, and 3 other passengers were hospitalized after falling into the water. A dog was also on board and did not survive.
We have 13 who are not injured.
In video from the scene, you can see the top of the cabin cruiser before the boat becomes fully submerged in the water. Debris also appearing to float to the water's surface.
As soon as people were hitting the water, we were just trying to pick them up as fast as we can. Some people didn't even have life vests on.
Now, a desperate search with assistance from the Coast Guard and nearby Oakland Police Department.
Our understanding was there was some kind of memorial service that they were engaging in. That's why they were using this particular vessel.
Authorities say the 3-deck vessel launched from the St. Francis Yacht Club and that the incident was initially called in as a fire, but there's no evidence yet of a blaze on board.
These search efforts are going to be ongoing throughout the night, providing surface coverage and air coverage.
Dive teams and rescue units are now in a race against time as investigators work to determine what caused the boat to go down.
This is an all-hands-on-deck search and hopefully rescue.
Now, officials have not released the identity of the man who died. They did say they don't believe that there were any children on board, and they added that all of the people injured are now in stable condition. They say the rough waters on the bay are part of what's been making this search and rescue effort so challenging right now, Joe.
All right, wish them the best today with that search. Liz, thank you so much.
Well, in France, crews are working around the clock to contain a large wildfire burning in the northern part of the country.
The fire has scorched nearly 4,700 acres in a historic forest. It's about 40 miles outside of Paris. It's one of several wildfires burning in Western Europe as the region deals with yet another intense heat wave.
NBC News correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian is south of Paris near the fire. She joins us now with the latest. Danielle, good morning. So what can you tell us about this? It sounds like crews are finally getting it under control.
They are, and in the words of the French President Emmanuel Macron, this was a fire of exceptional magnitude. I'm on the outskirts of the Fontainebleau forest, which has been described in the past as a jewel of biodiversity. Look at it now, guys. It is brown, gray. The greenery has mostly gone. We can still see some smoke. We can certainly smell it. And there are still fires going on in other parts of the forest, but this is contained here where I am. The fire is out, I mean. We were here in France just a few weeks ago talking to you about the record-breaking heat wave. Well, that heat wave, unfortunately, left large parts of Western Europe and France dry, parched, vulnerable, and it triggered an early start to the wildfire season. And of course, we are used to, unfortunately, wildfires in the south of France. But this is a first. having to use water bombers so close to the French capital. As you said, Joe, we're 40 miles southeast of Paris, and we've seen those planes scoop up water over and over again, dropping them on parts of this forest that is so popular with tourists. 15 million people come to this forest every year. It's the most visited in France, popular with hikers and campers. It is also surrounding one of the most famous royal palaces in the country, the Château de Fontainebleau. Now, of course, the fire spread because of the wind, because of the high temperatures. However, police also think that this may have been deliberate. They've arrested a number of individuals. Among them, according to local media, is a volunteer firefighter who was arrested and who reportedly said that he set fire to twigs using a lighter and gasoline. Another suspect said that he accidentally started the fire when throwing away his cigarette. Now, as I said earlier, the fires have been contained since last night, but officials say it'll take days before they're fully extinguished. So far this year, tens of thousands of acres have burnt, more than for all of 2025, guys.
And Danielle, however the fires do start, we know that the hot weather does certainly play a factor in fueling them and several others that are burning across Europe. Walk us through just how bad this heat wave is.
Well, this here in France, you know, the worst has now passed, and we can feel a breeze, which feels good, but it's also not good for the fires, obviously. But, you know, we talked about the heat wave last month, but as the days went by, officials now have a clearer picture of the devastating impact of that heat wave. A network of health officials have just released what they believe is an estimate for the number of excess deaths that we saw during that heat wave back in June. 10,000 people across Western Europe. That's France, Germany, Spain, and many of them, most of them, more than 9,000 of them believed to be over the age of 65. Obviously, aggravating cardiovascular issues, cardiac arrests, and there are fears, of course, that there will be more heat waves and people, of course, bracing for what could potentially come after that, more fires. Joe?
All right. Danielle, thank you so much.
We are following a high-stakes confirmation hearing on Capitol Hill today involving acting Attorney General and Trump ally Todd Blanche. He is set to face a bipartisan congressional grilling in his fight to permanently lead the Justice Department. On top of that, survivors of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are launching a fierce campaign to try and block his nomination. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has a preview. Hallie, good morning.
Hey there, good morning to you. Todd Blanche is expected to tell senators today that he is there in front of them to earn their trust again, we've learned, in what's expected to be a combative confirmation hearing. And for him, a make-or-break moment.
The biggest test yet today for President Trump's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche, now tapped to lead the Justice Department. Blanche, right now the acting AG, set to face heated questions at his confirmation hearing. Facing criticism from Democrats, he's doing President Trump's bidding by going after political rivals.
Todd Blanche has shown that he's going to be Donald Trump's personal consigliere, his mob lawyer.
Blanche also getting heat, including from some Republicans, about a controversial IRS lawsuit and that $1.8 billion so-called weaponization fund, since scuttled.
The 1776 fund has to be certainly and completely ended for me to feel comfortable with moving forward.
A federal judge just this week slamming Blanche, saying the court is extremely troubled by his congressional testimony back in May on this issue. Blanche is now telling one Democrat behind closed doors, "I made a mistake with the fund," according to Senator Dick Durbin. Blanche represented President Trump in a 2024 New York trial in which Mr. Trump was found guilty of falsifying records to conceal money paid to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Blanche, later joining the Justice Department, tapped to lead it in April after the ousting of the last Attorney General, Pam Bondi. But as her deputy, Blanche came under fire for the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein documents.
I'm not sure where the complaints are from Congress that we need to do more, because we've done more than in any other case in the history of this country.
Many abuse survivors furious to see some private information unredacted.
Todd Blanche failed us. He failed victims everywhere.
Now, some of them appearing in a new PSA urging the Senate to block Blanche's confirmation.
The way that we've seen the DOJ handle this case so far is concerning not only to us as victims of this crime, but it should be concerning to Americans everywhere.
Now, the DOJ has said it worked around the clock to address victim concerns. As for Blanche's hearing, at least 2 Republicans on the Judiciary Committee have signaled concerns about certain issues. It would only take 1 Republican no vote in this committee to block Blanche from moving forward. Although, remember, he's already been confirmed once by this group for his current job. We'll see how today goes. Back to you.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Senadella. Clearly, this is largely a political process, but from a legal perspective, what are some of the potential obstacles or challenges that Todd Blanche could face?
Yeah, so Joe, that's exactly right. So the question is really around his legal judgment and whether or not he's violated ethics, but there's no technical legal block right now to him being confirmed. It's a question of whether or not the politicians view that his legal record or his legal judgment is in question. Now, these ethics violations really come from the 2 things that we just heard Hallie discuss. So first is the question of the Epstein survivors, whether or not he actually violated part of the statute by disclosing secret information about victims that should have been protected through the process. And then secondly, involving this lawsuit in Florida, whether or not he allegedly manipulated the political process in order to defend and to help Trump and not the U.S.
Another thing Hallie noted is just the relationship between the president and Todd Blanche. He was his personal attorney. They have this close relationship. Does that raise any specific legal or ethical concerns?
Yeah, it really does. And it's fascinating because really in any capacity, Todd Blanche is still reporting to the same person, right? So whether or not he is Trump's personal attorney or the attorney general, it really all comes down to Trump. So the president is the one who hires and fires the attorney general, and the DOJ is run by the president, and the attorney general is just at the top of that mountain, right? So the reason why that's a problem, though, is that when the attorney general takes the oath to office, it is not to Trump. It is actually to the United States of America. And as we have seen repeatedly throughout this process, those can come into conflict. And in this administration, likely more than ever, even criminally and civilly, when both parties are on the opposite side, the question is, well, then whose loyalties will he lie to? And it should be, if you were attorney general, that of the United States, not of the president.
Let's talk more about some of the heat that he's getting from this recent ruling. It's related to President Trump's lawsuit against the IRS. The judge ordered sanctions against some of those. That includes Blanche. How big of a deal is that, especially for someone who wants to be the country's top prosecutor?
So the biggest problem is that if he does end up getting disbarred, and that is something that could potentially happen because he has been referred to both the NY and DC bars to be investigated. And we have never seen that happen before, that if someone is disbarred, if they can still stay attorney general. But that is a process that will take time. There will be investigations. It's not something that we will know right away. But the allegation there, which is in this ruling, is that there was allegedly this self-dealing and manipulation of the legal process in order to get a favorable settlement to one person. And that is highly problematic if you think about how this role is supposed to be that defending the United States, not of Trump.
Angela Senadella, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, an outbreak of cyclosporiasis that has infected thousands of people has now spread across 34 states. Health officials believe lettuce could be the source of the foodborne illness, which can cause weeks of severe gastrointestinal symptoms. NBC's Ann Thompson has been following the story and has the latest on the investigation into that cause. Ann, good morning.
Hey there, Michigan has more cases than any other state with 3,000 and counting. We spoke to that state's top doctor who's pointing, at least initially, at lettuce and other leafy greens as the potential culprit, although federal health officials have not yet confirmed a specific food item as the source of this outbreak. This morning, growing concerns over a multi-state outbreak of cyclosporiasis, the parasitic foodborne illness that can cause weeks of severe diarrhea and misery. The CDC identifying cases in 34 states with nearly 7,000 reports nationwide. The health agency is anticipating cases will increase possibly through August. The number of infections skyrocketing in Michigan with more than 3,000 cases. Federal officials say Michigan is one of 4 Midwestern states where cases could be linked. The state's top doctor says there is initial evidence pointing to lettuce as the main culprit.
We've interviewed about 1,000 out of the 3,000 cases we have so far. Lettuce seems to be an ongoing exposure for those who've been impacted.
While the FDA is tracing the parasite back to multiple produce items and locations, the Washington Post reports federal and state officials are also investigating Taco Bell. The fast food chain voluntarily removing a number of ingredients at select restaurants, calling health and safety its top priority. Natalie Webb lives in Michigan and says she is still recovering from contracting the parasite last week.
I immediately just went to urgent care, and that is when they told me what I already knew, is that I had what I call the parasite, produce parasite.
She calls her experience traumatic and uncontrollable.
And I don't ever want to have to experience anything like that again.
Many questions still remain this morning while health officials urgently search for the source of the stomach-churning outbreak.
Symptoms of cyclosporiasis can vary and usually begin a week or two after becoming infected. The CDC says without treatment, symptoms can last anywhere from a few days to a month or even longer.
All right, Ann, thank you.
Outrage is growing over 2 fatal ICE-involved shootings in less than a week. Now, Homeland Security officials are issuing a temporary change in ICE field tactics by hitting the pause button on most vehicle stops. For more, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin, who's in Maine with the latest. Aaron, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning. This is where eyewitnesses say they saw the body of 25-year-old Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero pulled from the vehicle. Now, as you can see, there's this makeshift memorial to remember the father of a 3-year-old. It's growing by the day, as is the outrage over his death.
This morning, ICE making a major change in tactics in the wake of 2 deadly shootings. The agency ordering a temporary nationwide mandate to all officers to stop targeting immigrants in vehicles. Border Czar Tom Homan insisting it won't impact larger operations.
I hear a lot of noise right now. This is going to affect ICE arrests, and it's not going to.
The pause coming after 2 separate ICE-involved shooting deaths in less than a week. A senior DHS official tells NBC News ICE is evaluating the incidents to determine what additional training is needed to reduce the negative outcomes we are seeing. Officials say neither man, one killed in Texas, the other in Maine, was the target of an ICE operation. Both cases raising new questions about the recent push for record numbers of arrests.
Last month, ICE had the highest numbers of arrests in the history of the agency.
And sparking outrage across the country. The order comes after Monday's fatal shooting in Biddeford, Maine. The Colombian embassy identified the man shot to death by an ICE agent as 25-year-old Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero, who DHS confirmed was authorized to work in the U.S. According to a GoFundMe page started by his family, Guerrero was a married father of a 3-year-old girl. A relative tells NBC News they are devastated. His sister calling for justice. Resident Cecilia Humiston says shortly after he was killed, she saw Guerrero's family, including his little girl, gathered just yards away from his body.
I had seen like a middle-aged woman with them, and she was yelling at the officers, and she was like, you took her dad, you took her dad.
New video shows the car he was driving moving in circles, then later struck by another vehicle. This video capturing the moment ICE agents pulled a limp body from the car. A senior DHS official with knowledge of the incident told NBC News the man killed matched the physical description of a target and was exiting a residence associated with the target. A statement released by ICE on Monday said the agent opened fire fearing for public safety after the vehicle attempted to flee.
It's a shameful episode in our country's history.
And this morning, President Trump weighed in on the new temporary DHS policy, saying, quote, we cannot give up ICE officers conducting traffic stops, adding it won't happen on my watch. Joe.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
We've got much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the latest motion on Capitol Hill to make daylight saving time the new normal. Will that seasonal switch soon become a thing of the past?
First, though, after the break, a sobering medical diagnosis for an American hero more than 15 years after performing the miracle on the Hudson. That is next. Stay with us.
We are back now with some sad news about one of America's most admired aviators, really a hero. Captain Sully Sullenberger, the pilot celebrated for the miracle on the Hudson emergency landing back in 2009, has revealed he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The 75-year-old says he hopes to raise awareness and support others living with the disease. NBC News Daily anchor Kate Snow has more. Kate, good morning.
Hey there, I think we all remember the miracle on the Hudson when a U.S. Airways flight made that emergency landing on the Hudson River here in New York City, and all 155 people on board were saved. Captain Sullenberger was celebrated for his courage that day more than 15 years ago. Well, now he's drawing on that same courage to face a new challenge. A hero in the skies, now facing a new battle on the ground. Captain Chesley Sullenberger, known as Captain Sully, the pilot who famously landed Flight 1549 safely on the Hudson River, has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. In a statement sharing it is early stage, adding, "A name may not come easily to me. I forget a story I've recently told, or I don't sleep as well. Though it may impact my memory of the past," he writes, "this diagnosis will not prevent me from looking forward to and appreciating our future." It was January 2009. The U.S. Airways flight had just taken off from New York's LaGuardia Airport when a bird strike severely damaged the plane's engines, forcing that emergency landing on a chilly Hudson River.
Many people sitting in some small life rafts.
Captain Sullenberger and his crew were credited for saving all 155 people on board. He told Craig on the 15th anniversary of the miracle on the Hudson.
I went through the airplane from front to back twice just to make doubly sure that there was no one left behind.
Captain Sully retired from flying in 2010, shifting his focus to flight safety and writing 2 books, one of which was adapted into the 2016 film Sully, with Oscar-winning actor Tom Hanks starring in the lead role.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
After devoting 7 years of service in the Air Force and 30 more as a commercial pilot, Captain Sullenberger continued working as an advocate across the aviation industry. He now joins more than 7 million Americans living with Alzheimer's, a recent report saying that number could nearly double by 2060. Captain Sully insists he'll use his voice to serve a different purpose, writing, "It is my hope that by sharing this, other families living in the shadows with this disease will feel they too can step forward." In an exclusive interview with People magazine, Captain Sully revealed he was diagnosed last August. His wife, Lori, says he's been unflappable and focused, saying that strength and steadiness is guiding them as a family. Later this year, in September, Captain Sullenberger will be inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame. Back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you. Well, let's bring back NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar for more on this. Dr. Azar, thanks for sticking around. So we learned some things that Captain Sully said he noticed first: forgetting names, repeating stories, even changes in his sleep. But I'm wondering what may be something that you should take as an early onset sign here versus just normal aging.
Well, I think we all look at some of the symptoms of the early stages of Alzheimer's and go, well, gosh, that happens to me sometimes. And, a lot of these are normal age-related changes, but sort of more specifically, when you start noticing a pattern in someone you know or love, or even yourself, things like memory loss. You can't remember a conversation you had with somebody a week ago, difficulty with problem solving, confusing time and place, poor judgment, mood, personality changes. And this is, it's a bit of a spectrum. Not all these things necessarily happen at once. And I just want to reiterate that a lot of these things, we go, oh, where did I put my keys, right? But the classic anecdote with Alzheimer's is the keys are suddenly in the refrigerator, or you've driven the same route multiple times and suddenly you get lost and you can't find your way home. Little red flags like that should prompt some concern that there could be something going on.
Alzheimer's impacts almost every family in some form or fashion these days. Let's look at the numbers. 7.4 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with it right now. So for people in that age group, we're talking about 1 in 9 people. The number is expected, though, to nearly double, reach 14 million by the year 2060. That's what the Alzheimer's Association says. Talk about, obviously people be living longer. That's part of the reason here. But why do we see the risk increase so dramatically as we age?
Yeah, and I think our aging population is the number one reason that we're going to see these numbers just kind of explode in the next number of decades. But if you think about what are the risk factors, what causes Alzheimer's? Well, there's a lot of different things. The biggest one is age. There are age-related changes that happen to all of our brains, but specifically in an Alzheimer's patient, we have that accumulation of that protein, amyloid, and tau that causes destruction of your neuronal cells. There's inflammation, there's blood vessel changes. Those are all age-related brain changes. Then we've got family history, genetics, lifestyle, and environment. So the one message here, I like to always sort of flip something on its positive. You can't change your family history and your genetics, but a lot of the lifestyle things, smoking, controlling hypertension, cardiovascular disease, all of those things, well controlled, can also mitigate some of that risk for dementia.
There, as we know, is no cure, but there have been some important advancements recently. Yes. What are those? Is there anything that can treat this at all?
Right. So, correct, there is no cure. And unfortunately, we're not at a place yet where we have treatments that can prevent in someone who doesn't have any signs yet of cognitive decline. But in the last 5 or 6 years, there have been a number of different antibody treatments that were approved that specifically target and reduce the amount of amyloid plaque in the brain. That goes to something called the amyloid hypothesis. That is, that amyloid is the only reason that people have Alzheimer's. It's not the entire story. But beyond that, because those can carry some risks and they can be expensive and this and this and this. But there are some medicines that are available that can help with some of the cognitive function that are not those antibody treatments.
You mentioned a moment ago things we can do to just protect our brain health. What are some of the best steps that we can do?
And per our segment earlier today, right? There's certain things that are not malleable, but things that are super, super important. Staying engaged socially, physical activity, a healthy anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet, brain games, all of those things can help our cognitive health and help our brain aging as we age chronologically, as well as physiologically.
All right, such important info. Dr. Azar, thank you so much.
Coming up, could daylight saving time actually, finally, become a permanent part of our lives?
It's a timeless subject of debate no matter where you live. Now, though, Congress is taking steps to make sure we see those later sunsets year-round. Not everyone is on board, though. We'll clock into that conversation up next. We are back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with 2 Supreme Court justices talking about threats to their safety.
NBC News political reporter Megan Brand joins us with that and more. Megan, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. Yeah, let's start on Capitol Hill, where Justices Elena Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett made a rare appearance before lawmakers yesterday. The justices testified before the House and Senate over the Supreme Court's budget request, which increased by more than $20 million in order to beef up security. Justice Kagan said that the Supreme Court police saw a 38% increase in threats this year. Justice Barrett also recalled a swatting incident at her home, as well as having to explain to one of her kids a couple of years ago why she had a bulletproof vest. Next, let's turn to E. Jean Carroll, who had been in a legal battle against President Trump. Now, court records show that Carroll has collected her $5 million judgment against him. This comes more than 3 years after a jury in 2023 found Trump liable for sexual assault and awarded Carroll $5 million. Trump has denied the allegations and filed several appeals, but this month a judge ordered him to give her the money. Finally, let's go to the Senate, where Senator Lindsey Graham's sister, Darlene Graham, was sworn in to fill the remainder of his term. She was appointed by South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster days after Senator Graham died unexpectedly. When she was appointed, she said that, quote, Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. A primary election is taking place on August 11th to select a Republican candidate to run for a full term this fall. And that's a look at what's making news in politics this morning, guys.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. All right, could it finally happen? Could daylight saving time soon become permanent in the U.S.? We are now one step closer after the House passed what's known as the Sunshine Protection Act yesterday. Now, this bill would eliminate the annual switch back to standard time each fall. It would keep the country on daylight saving time year-round.
The Senate will now consider the legislation. If it passes and is signed into law, Americans would no longer turn their clocks back each November, keeping those later sunsets year-round.
Dr. Karen Johnson joins us with more on this. She is the co-chair of the Coalition for Permanent Standard Time and vice president of Save Standard Time. More on that in a moment, Dr. Johnson. But first, just big picture. We've had this debate politically for a long time, not the first time this has come up in Congress. What exactly would this change for Americans if it does go through?
Yeah, so permanent daylight savings time would have us stay on the time we're on now. So instead of switching back in the fall, we would stay with later sunrises and sunsets. And the issue with this is that when you extend daylight savings time into the winter, we essentially lose morning light until after 8 a.m. for 2 to 4 months. Some places only having sunrises at 8:30 or 9 a.m. And that has, particular consequences on our health and safety.
Yeah, you argue that standard time is actually healthier, while people who are in favor of what we're talking about right now, this extending daylight savings, say the opposite. Why is it that you say it's healthier?
Yeah, so standard time is set more by when the sun is naturally overhead at noon, whereas daylight savings time is set an hour later. And our bodies stay aligned with the sun. And so when you set those clocks later, it makes it harder to fall asleep on time. It makes it harder to wake up on time. And it puts our bodies in misalignment, which really affects our health. It affects our productivity. It affects our ability to have good judgment. And so that's why we end up seeing things like higher rates of diseases and car accidents with daylight savings time, but we could actually see improvements in those with standard time.
If we stay on daylight saving time year round, clearly the arguments we've heard for that, people like having more daylight in the evening hours. We always hear the Chamber of Commerce cited as saying, we need that so people will go shopping and businesses will succeed. How do you respond to some of those arguments that are made about all this?
So first, what a lot of people only say is that there's harms of the changes themselves. And so if we get rid of those harms, we're going to do better. What we know now is there's a lot of studies that really show what is the effects of having the sun set with an artificially late time. And those studies show that there's higher rates of obesity, cancer, heart disease, strokes. We do worse in school. And so we have more depression and suicide. And so it's really important not that we just end the harms of the time change, which is what we do want, but we need to end it with a way that is more naturally aligned with the sun and that can improve health and safety rather than harm health and safety. And this also goes for businesses. Most workers need to get to work on time. They need to show up. They need to be productive. They need to be healthy. And so the majority of businesses would actually be hurt by permanent daylight savings time because of those losses in productivity and health and safety to their workers.
So I think we've established that there's so much agreement that maybe changing that clock is not ideal. But there is this debate, as we've been just talking about which one to go with. From a health perspective, what do you think about the possibility of each state deciding what works best for them, or voters in each state getting to decide rather than a national standard?
Well, certainly because the length of days vary whether you're in the north with sort of a more extreme changes and whether you're more on the western edge of time zones, which already have later sunrise and sunsets. Daylight savings times do affect states differently. So there is, from a health reason, the more aligned we are all to the sun would be the best for health-wise for everyone. So the standard time still aligns more people to improve health overall.
All right. Dr. Karen Johnson, the debate continues.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. We have this hour with a colossal transaction. A massive T-Rex fossil just sold for more than $50 million at an auction. Take a look in all his glory. His name is Gus.
A commercial paleontologist discovered Gus's 38-foot-long skeleton in South Dakota, and now he's breaking records as the most expensive dinosaur fossil ever sold. But as NBC News correspondent Marquise Francis reports, Gus is sparking a dino debate about whether private citizens should be able to get their hands on historical artifacts.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king of the dinosaurs 60 million years ago, fetching a king's ransom at auction. The fossilized skeleton, nicknamed Gus, setting a new record, sold at auction for just over $50 million, Sotheby's says. The ancient apex predator, 38 feet long and 12.5 feet high, about the size of a yellow school bus.
Gus is one of the biggest and most complete T-Rex ever found.
Sotheby's putting out this video to hype the auction, saying Gus is 61% complete by bone count and nearly 80% complete by total mass, ranking up there with famous T-Rexes like the Chicago Field Museum's Sue. It was found by commercial paleontologist Thomas Heitkamp and his team, commissioned in 2021 to find fossils on a South Dakota ranch. They spotted one bone, a needle in a 6,500-acre haystack. Heitkamp making the case for private funding for such excavations.
We're in some pretty remote, dense areas that are hard to get to, that are expensive to get to, that are logistically dangerous. No one else is looking in those places.
NBC News was unable to reach him for comment. Digging Gus up and rebuilding the skeleton took years. Now it's payday. The colossal price tag is unearthing concerns about its scientific value and who will have access to it. A recent study found that the majority of discovered T-Rex fossils are privately owned, making it harder for museums to acquire specimens as prices rise.
If we want to understand how smart T-Rex was, what it ate, how it moved, what its world was like, its environment was like, this fossil really is a crown jewel.
Dinosaur fossils, a hot commodity for the super rich. Another T-Rex, Stan, sold for more than $30 million in 2020. And a Stegosaurus, Apex, sold for almost $45 million in 2024. In both cases, the buyers loaned the fossils to museums. Paleontologist Dr. Steve Brusati says he hopes whoever bought Gus will do the same.
Donate it to a museum. Get it out there. Make it so it's not only you that can enjoy this, but millions of people. That's how you can make a real impact.
The dinosaurs couldn't escape the destructive force of an asteroid in the prehistoric world. Now, their legacy trying to survive between market forces of capitalism and advancing science. Marquise Francis, NBC News.
That'll do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.